the water starts up in the high Sierras at 3 different lakes, Frenchman, Davis, and Antelope in the high Sierra. And after the snowpack melts off, its first stop is Oroville Dam. And so what you're going to see, again, is a bird's eye view of this whole project. just kind of wanted to give you a visual about some of the things that we're talking about here. So in other words, way up in the High Sierra, north of Sacramento, 600 plus miles away, we have 3 small little lakes that 80% of our water, is actually dependent upon snowpack. We need it to snow up there and then run off into the watersheds that come down the Feather River and can supply our water system. Because again, some of the other points that were made in the other DVD, 2/3 of the water that we use down here has to flow through the delta. Well, in order for it to flow through the delta, we need the snowpack in the High Sierra first. We have over 700 miles of pipeline, aqueduct, and conveyance system of a natural or a man-made type. 444 miles of aqueduct, open-air aqueduct, bringing water here to the south. We provide water for an estimated 25 million California homes and businesses, and Californians in general, I should say, and 750,000 acres of farmland. With that in mind, does anybody have any questions before I continue any further? Anything specific? Okay. Again, the building of the State Water Project began in the late 60s. Oh, okay. I have a question in the back. I'm going to go ahead.
Going on, the water in the pictures looks really great, and you say you get 80% from someplace, right?
I'm sorry, could you
get 80% of water from water, snow and stuff?
80% of the water that we deliver, we are 80% dependent on snowpack. So when we don't have snowpack, we are really at...
so that's the stage we're at right now then?
We're in dire straits. There was not, if any of you follow the snowpack measurements, they usually go into March, April. Last year, or I should say this last March and April, there was nothing to measure. Usually where they can go out and at least measure a foot or two or a couple of feet of snow, and there was dirt on the ground. There was no snow to measure.
Because my interest right now is up by Freeway Castay Lake. The summer, before this past summer, kids couldn't even go swimming. And you think by now, maybe next year we'll be better off. This year we did have the kayaks on the water. We had a county picnic for health reasons, exercise and stuff. We had 2,000 people out at the lake in the hot weather and stuff. And it was nice that the lake was open this year, but we had to close it down again. The lake is down 90 feet.
Yes, sir.
It's unbelievable, but I don't know how long, like you say, we can bring. I'm from Buffalo, New York. I'll pipe it all you want from Buffalo, New York, because we get heavy snow.
Yeah. No, and again, it's something that, working in the Water Education Center up there, we get people from all over stop in, and do I think it could be done? Of course. I think man can do anything he puts his mind to. And
well, what do you think the problem is? Cost too much money?
Well, again, it's politics of it. There's no way you could get 2 governors to agree on it. As a matter of fact, they've already discussed that. That was in the news not that long ago when William Shatner was proposing to build some pipeline from Oregon, and the governor of Oregon said, we're not going to sell you any water anyway. So,
if they keep building all the homes out here, because every home that's built has got 3 toilets in the house.
Well,
I only use 1 in mine on average, because just my wife and I live at home. But the kids go buy more houses and stuff, and it's a mess.
Well, and here's this is kind of one of the things I wanted to bring up, is because to me, California water it's a complicated issue, and it's way over my head. I'm just here. I have a little bit of a background in a lot of general issues here, but I'm not an expert in anything. But it doesn't take much for me to see. One of the things Mr. Leafdale asked me to look into was basically, with our first water deliveries with the State Water Project were in 1973, and at that time we were just shy of 21 million people here in the state of California. Mm-hmm. Right now, we are hovering right around, what was it, just shy of 39 million people is what they're giving us credit for. However, I don't think necessarily everybody's being counted either, but in the census. But right there, our population is darn near doubled, and yeah, it's taken 40 years to get here, but we're still dealing with the same state water project. We're still dealing with the same water projects that have been in play without Mother Nature cooperating. Man's got to do something at some point.
Well, like you say in the films, like you say in the films and stuff, they had water shortages years ago, and now they got about 10 millions of more people living in California and coming. California's a nice place to be.
It's a wonderful place.
Yeah, I moved out here in '79. I transferred my company, and I worked 36 years from Outcome, and I'm glad I moved out here. So it's awful though. My son works for the county hospital, so everybody's got problems with everything.
Right.
Yeah. Okay.
Yes, sir. I appreciate your comments. Thank you very much. Mm-hmm. Someone else would like to make a comment?
Yeah, I thought you might be talking about the fact that pumping through the delta has gone down because of the smelt, and what we're going to do because even if the population increases, then the amount of water delivery has been decreasing because of that problem. So I wonder what kind of comments you had about that.
Let me, before I say too much about anything that might get me in trouble here. Some of these opinions are solely mine, but I will speak to that. Actually, all these opinions are solely mine. One of like you said, the Delta is the heart of the State Water Project. Predominantly, the problem has been we have to protect the fish species. The Delta smelt is not native to California. It was brought along here and tagged along, and I don't know exactly how it got here, but it is a indicator species. And so they like to look at it because and when I say they, the scientific community, believe that they can try and figure out what's going to be good for fish such as steelhead and salmon and the other natural native species. So one of the things you have to realize, especially in these last few years, is without much rainfall, what starts to happen is we start getting more inflow from the ocean water into the bay, into that delta area from the bay. The salination obviously is not good for the environment, and so we've built barriers, such as the one they showed in the film. But that is part of what this whole Bay Delta Conservancy project has been about. And right now they're they're changing that around a little bit. And so right now the plan is for the twin tunnels to proceed and to provide more fresh water for that area by bringing water from further up on the feather and pumping it straight down, basically right in front of where we would take in water at Banks there at the start of the canal. So is that going to relieve, the salination problem and then therefore the problem with the fish? The hope is that it will. And if we can get a couple of normal water years along with a couple of real good ones, then it probably has a pretty good chance. But I was kind of looking at some history of California rain and drought events, and it seems to me that since the recorded times, we just don't have enough years of heavy rainfall to, make like a huge difference in that area just naturally, So what I'm getting at, in other words, is if we're starting to experience problems now, if we don't get the El Nino that we're expecting, if we don't get the rainfall and the snow events that we're expecting, then yeah, it's going to get worse. And what the plan is to resolve it then, other than building more barriers, but there again, people are going to have to start scrambling because that area is key to the State Water Project. So I hope that somewhat answered your question. Yes, sir.
Yeah, the question is, what will a substantial El Nino have the effect on the water table in the Central Valley, and particularly with the phenomenon of the land dropping and so forth? What will it do, and what effect will it have in the Central Valley?
Well, specifically, and I can't be too exacting for you. I wish I could, but it's not my area of expertise. But I can tell you in general that the subsidence that's going on has been going on for years, and there are there's a famous old photograph of a guy, and I believe it was taken somewhere around 1972. He's standing next to a telephone pole, and it has the date on the ground by his feet, 1972. It's about a 6-foot tall guy, and he's standing next to a 30-foot pole. And he's got increments along the way, but at the very top it says 1927. The ground has dropped some 30, 40, maybe even 50 feet in some areas in the Central Valley over a period of time. So it's still dropping. The problem is if you're not pretty quick about putting the water in when you're pumping it out, then you're already starting to get subsidence. You'll never be able to refill the void, that the water came from. It just doesn't work that way. I believe they call it the alluvial debris, the sands and the rock material. Once that water is gone, it's hard to put anything, like Mother Nature did back into it and to make it like it was in the past. So in other words, what happens is while they're pumping, and right now they're pumping water in the Central Valley like you wouldn't believe. And as a matter of fact, I mentioned earlier, was just up in Fresno not very long ago, and I wish I would have went into the well drilling business. I heard that they're backed up over like a 1.5 to 2 year wait on some places, and they're charging top dollar to drill wells. The problem is when you take it out, if you're not replacing it right then, you're always going to get some kind of subsidence. So,
any idea how much one season will help replenish that?
No, sir, not off the top of my head, and I apologize for that. I wish I did know. One thing, though, since you brought that up, I did include some websites in your material, and the Water Education Foundation has unbelievable. They have books that teach groundwater, surface water, all kinds of stuff. They have some very good publications that they put out to educate. But then also we have on our website information along those lines, as well as financial costs and things and future planning and what's going on. And then also links to other state resources, other control boards, water control boards, other affiliations as well. Anyone else?
So, Jeff, what was the intended use of the water? How many people did they intend to supply water to? Where is it today, and what are they expecting in the future? And what has the state have to do to manipulate the system to see to it that it can do what it is doing today?
Well, right now, primarily, and I'm going to try and answer as many of those as I can, but unfortunately, I don't have all that information. But I can say this: it's like anything. When Mulholland built his pipeline, as soon as it was done, the population in Los Angeles didn't just double; it grew exponentially, and that's what's happening here in the state. Although at a slower rate. But in 1973, again, when we started to make our first deliveries, we're talking about delivering water for a population of 21 million, but again, we're talking about downstream here. And so, again, predominantly the the population has grown down here. It's not in, all of California, so it's grown. If you understand what I'm trying to say, Spencer. In other words, the population in the LA area has grown more than, say, in some other areas. So the State Water Project, even though they had an idea of what was going to happen, they didn't know it was going to grow like this when we first started making water deliveries. In your handout, you'll see that we delivered, the last year I have stats for here, it was, our highest delivery year to date was in 2006, where we delivered 3.7 million acre feet. And in 2006, the population of the state was roughly about 36, a little over 36 million people. So we have grown a couple of million, not that many, about almost 3 million since then. But you got to remember, this is getting to be an antiquated system as well. Other than making repairs and keeping the system running, there isn't a lot new planned for the system, other than just to retrofit what needs to be retrofitted and upgrade when we can. The one good thing about the State Water Project is that basically your tax dollars really don't go to that. It's the 29 water contractors. Now, they charge you, of course, to bring water to your homes and everything, but as far as building the State Water Project was done by bond, and the State Water Project contractors are paying that back. So right now, though, we're dealing with an infrastructure that's 40-plus years old, and especially as you go up north, there isn't anything new as far as any new branches or anything. If anything, things have been put on hold to build because we just don't have the wherewithal to do it right now, and especially if there's no water to move, there's no water to move. So I know that didn't answer all your questions, and I'm going to have to refer you to someone else on some of those as far as the estimates on the populations and things like that.
Yes, there's still the 800-pound gorilla. We try to wish it wasn't there, and that's the global warming. I'd like to know, how does global warming affect California? What do you think will happen to California water with global warming? And are there any studies on this? What California can do as temperature goes up 2 degrees to 4 degrees?
Global warming, a lot of people, this is where I kind of have to step aside. I'm not a big believer in it. I believe in cycles. I believe in that we're in a cyclical pattern, and that this has been going on since the day that time began. One of the things I was going to mention, and I have a few, I know you can't see them from there, but just to, what did I do with them? Here we go. Depending on where you get your information and what you read, this is the problem with predicting the weather. I have 2 different articles right here, both written on, actually 2 days apart. One was on Wednesday, October 14th. One was on October 12th. And this one says, this devastating chart shows why even a powerful El Nino won't fix the draft. This one says, evidence mounts for El Nino that could ease California draft. And so here again, different publications, but you mentioned global warming, and so one of the things I like to talk about when I hear that is NASA published a little article, and I printed this. This was from 9/11/13, and this is Arctic sea ice up 60% in 2013. And they show NASA has taken a picture over the cap up there. at the Arctic sea ice coverage, and it's actually grown over 1 million square miles. So, and I keep hearing about sea levels rising, but I don't hear of anybody being flooded along the coasts and things. So again, it's one of those things where I'm sure somebody that would have a scientific background would probably give you a totally different answer than what I'm giving you, and I hope that doesn't offend you or anything. I'm just trying to give you my personal opinion about this. I really think that
if there was a global warming, it would certainly contribute more to the drought than we already have.
Yes, sir. I agree with that statement as far as that goes. But again, you look at the patterns, and we've had periods where we've had, like I believe that the film stated 1870, cattle dying, people, and at that time we didn't have the water situations. People could go get water. I mean, if they were near it, they didn't have the pipelines and infrastructure that we have now. But it's one of those things where these things have been going on since time began, and so I just can't speak to the global warming issue. So, I think there's one or two more questions.
Yeah. You mentioned the aging system, and I remember back in '69 when the Feather River project came essentially right through here. It came, if I remember correctly, it came down the back 9 at Knollwood. What's the projection? What the equipment that was used, the piping and so forth? Is there any kind of idea what that was built for? Have there been issues in the system? Do we have to worry about the aging infrastructure?
I wouldn't say you had to worry about it as far as that goes, because people are staying on top of it. Now, if you're specifically talking about the new stuff that the governor's proposing with the tunnels and everything, or
The older stuff.
Okay, yeah, no, the older stuff. It's. I haven't heard any specifics as far as any one area. They're always refurbishing, pumps and always going through plants. New plants, though, I haven't heard of any being developed. We're pretty good with maintenance as far as that goes. We do have, good people out there, and we do have the wherewithal because of the contracting agencies basically supplying us with, the proper revenue and then the planning that goes on. It is being addressed. But again, we do have just a very old system, and it's not getting any younger. And we have a population that keeps growing, and it probably is not going to stop anytime soon. And with the weather being what it is, if not this year, we may see a year or two of El Nino and get a lot of rain and a lot of snowpack. But ultimately, we're going to have years of drought again. And I would think that those would be the areas that we really need to look to in the future as to how we can, number one, find more water, and where we can utilize it from, more surface water, either capturing these rain events that are going to happen, and making better use of what we have already. And I know that there are people in Sacramento that are starting to think about those things. I've given you some websites, and I'm more than available if anybody would like to call and ask me a question. I've left some cards in the back and some other handouts if you'd like to give them to your friends. But please, don't hesitate. Just because I don't know the answer to something doesn't mean I won't look for you or try and help you find that. But the websites I've given you, I think, are a pretty good start on some of the questions that you may have. I know this wasn't exactly as it was going to be, but the time kind of got filled up, and so I think I'm getting the cue that it's over. Is that right? And again, I think